Today we're talking technology at CMS, opening cold cases at CMPD, and Charlotte's music scene. I'm Carlton Hargrove, and this is 282. Folks, thank you for joining us once again for another great episode of 282. As usual, we've got a great discussion coming your way, and we've got a great group of folks to talk about all these hot and provocative topics. But before we introduce the group of panelists that we have, we want to say what's up to 282 producer Jarvis Holliday, who's over in what I'm calling today the Fortress of Holitude. What you think about that?
I like that one.
That's pretty good.
Sounds strong. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know you haven't formally introduced the panel yet, but I just want to let our viewers know if they see beads of sweat forming your forehead, it's because you're nervous because there's a police officer on the panel. But you guys can follow the show on Twitter at 282TV. And if you want to comment on some of the topics we're discussing, use hashtag 282TV, and we're incorporated in the show.
All right. Well, thank you, Jarvis, over there in the Fortress of Holitude. Let me introduce the great panel that we have today. First up on the end, we've got Scott Murray, who is the Chief Information Officer at CMS.
Yes, sir.
We've also got a good friend of mine. We've got Jeff Hain, who is the music editor for Creative Loafing. Thank you, Jeff. We've also got, this is the guy who's making everybody sweat. We've got Daryl Price, Sergeant Daryl Price from CMPD. So thank you guys for joining us for the show today. It's going to be lots of fun. Let's start off today talking about technology at CMS. Now, that right now is kind of making headlines. I saw a story in the Observer, I guess it was last week, about the proposed budget. And in the new budget for CMS, there's a lot of money, you know, $1 million plus something dollars being asked to augment and increase technology at CMS. There was even a thing where they were talking about, I guess, $10 million was going to be set aside for some iPad project. It turned out to be half of that or something like that. But now that we have you on the show, we can get to the bottom of all this stuff. So let's just start out just asking, what is the role of technology at CMS right now?
Great question. The role of technology in CMS is really to transform the learning process. You and I both know about technology as it impacts our lives, whether we're cell phone users or iPad users or desktop computer users. Even in the studio, we see the power of technology.
Yes.
Our role is to make sure that technology is positively impacting the students in the classroom.
Okay.
They're digital natives. They use it every day. Many times in schools, we tell them, as immigrants that we are, turn it off, put it away, let's open a book.
Okay.
And we know that there are some better ways to use the tools of technology in the classroom. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. And so, you know, with the proposed budget and this iPad project, it seems like they're trying to make allocations to increase the technology that we have or that you have in schools and students can use. How are those efforts going to, you know, get more technology in their hands and in the classrooms?
Last year, our board set aside $10 million, actually about $10.5 million, to focus on enhancing technology in our classrooms. A large portion of that money, in fact, about $6.5 million, is simply used for infrastructure. The wires, the servers, the network that allows this technology to function in the classroom. And then professional development. In order to use the tools effectively, our teachers and principals need to know how to take advantage of those tools and use them with kids. And then finally, the devices themselves. We need to increase the amount of devices that our kids have in the classroom. So that's what that set aside was for.
Now, how is that going? Our teachers, especially our teachers, picking up? Because the kids can learn kind of quick, but some of us older folks, not me, Jeff, but some of us, some older folks have a hard time picking up the new technology. How's that going?
It's going well. It's a professional development process, and it's a learning curve for everyone. We have some folks that move quickly. They're users themselves, and so they clearly understand how to use the tools effectively with kids. And other folks, whether it's teachers or principals, that it's something that they need to learn, and they're embracing it. So lots of questions are being asked, but lots of professional development and guidance is given to those folks so they can use it in the classroom. But you're right about the kids. They already understand it.
Yeah, they're quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I do want to pass it around a little bit, and I know you're not a CMS student, Jeff, you know, but, you know, I'm wondering, just from your, you know, reporting at Creative Loafing and stuff that you've kind of seen, do you think that this added technology or a push that way has helped, you know, the school system at all, even the perception of CMS?
We live in such a different society these days where information of all kinds goes across through technology, and and things like that. So a lot of kids, yes, they already have the knowledge of how to get it, and how to access it, and how to use all of these different things. I've never even held an iPad, and so
Yeah, Jeff was against iPads before they came out. Jeff was totally against iPads. Are
I
you still against
say
them?
iPhone and laptop. Why do you need an iPad? But,
Right.
sometimes I feel like it's my age that I think every younger generation thinks, well, I'm not going to grow up to be like my parents, and then here I am getting older and thinking, well, it's not like it used to be, and
Right.
I hope that kids don't forget how to write and just learn how to type. So.
Now, what about you? I don't know. Do you have kids or that are in the school system or?
I do have a daughter that just was a recent CMS student. Now she's a college student. And I could foresee a time where the original expense of technology could result in a cost savings, because I know now you can get some textbooks on technology, and it's a lot cheaper that way than spending $300 for a textbook. You might be able to get it through whether it be a Nook or Kindle or whatever type of e-reader, for half that expense. So it could eventually, I could see, be a cost savings.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm wondering about pushback that you get. I know that somebody was talking about these smart boards were, I guess, installed in some schools, and that there were some people that thought it really didn't help anything. They didn't use them that much. And I'm wondering, are there detractors, either on the board or in the community, who are against adding more technology like smart boards and iPads and things like that?
I'm certain that those people do exist, and that's rare to actually hear someone say that technology is not a great thing for our kids. Typically, it's how we use it. The easiest thing to do today is to roll up a big truck in front of a school and give them a bunch of stuff. But if our teachers and principals don't know how to effectively use the tools with students, then we have some challenges. So the goal is really to make sure that we have a lot of professional developments, helping people use the tools, so that when the kids understand how to take advantage of that digital textbook that's available to them.
Well, is it hard to get the money for these things? I mean, I see right now the interim superintendent kind of went back and is asking for like $27 million more or whatever. Is it difficult, especially in these recessionary times, to get money for those kind of things?
It's difficult to get the money for technology, not as much because of the recessionary times, but because people don't always understand why the tools would be of assistance in the classroom. So I think our job is to help people understand how students can effectively use the tools to help in the teaching and learning process.
Okay.
And it's an art form to help to communicate with folks in understanding how to effectively use tools.
Right.
So.
Well, if people want to get more involved, I guess, with even helping or, I don't know, donating technology they may have or lending their own expertise to, is there some place they can go, or who can they contact?
Great. If we have a parent that has a child in a school, the first place I would go is to the school itself. The school improvement plan, which is really the guiding process, the guiding document of that school, is controlled by the parents and the teachers and the administrators of that school.
Okay.
And so how, as a parent, looking at that document, that should help them understand how they can support it, whether it's donating dollars or donating time or simply supporting the vision of their local school.
Okay.
That's the place to start.
All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot
You're
for
welcome.
that. I do want to move on to another topic that we have on the table, which is music in Charlotte. And I'm a big music fan, and I used to work with Jeff over at Creative Loafing years ago. And no, it wasn't that long ago, 6 months ago. But you still are over there. You're still doing a great job. Not only are you the music editor, but you also do an event of your own called Off the Record at the Evening Muse. It's a live thing where you interview the bands and they play music. It's a great event. And I'm wondering, what do you think of the Charlotte music scene now? And I ask that because back when I was there, it seemed like people called Charlotte a B market when it comes to music. But now we're seeing acts like Madonna's coming to town. So you're seeing bigger acts, bring their tours here. The other side of it is you're seeing kind of homegrown acts like Grown Up Avenger stuff and all these kind of groups bubbling up from the underground. So does that mean that we're in a better position now than we were? Is Charlotte still a B market or what?
I think we're definitely in a better position. I think some of it is still attributed to just people coming out and supporting shows. But as far as the artists that are coming here, I think a lot more are giving Charlotte a chance.
Why do you think that is?
I think part of it is because of the new venues. I think having the Fillmore and the Uptown Amphitheater here, which are 2,000 and 5,000 person venues, respectively. I think that's added to not only the variety of artists that can come in to play a venue that size, but there was worry that, oh, well, if somebody goes to the Fillmore, they're going to be taking away from the neighborhood theater or Amos's and things like that. Some of that has happened where bands have gone to the Fillmore. Some of them have gone to the Fillmore and then gone back. But I think opening that door, if artists, John Smith, whoever, goes to the Fillmore instead of the neighborhood theater, that show now taken away from the neighborhood theater's got a spot they've got to fill where you can't just take shows, but I think it's opening their doors to who else they're bringing in.
Right.
So instead of having 3 shows on a Friday night, you've got 4 or 5 shows on a Friday night now. It's just bringing in a lot more variety and diversity within the scene.
So how are shows doing this? I mean, I know at one point, I don't know how long ago that was, maybe last summer, summer before, there were a lot of shows that got scheduled, that got canceled. I don't know, ticket sales or whatever. Are shows being well attended now? Are people buying tickets more now, or what?
I still think it's a variety.
Yeah.
It's one thing that's always fascinated me about the Charlotte music scene, where you could have a band come in on a Wednesday and would sell out,
Right.
and then they'll come back on a Thursday and there's 30 people.
Yeah.
And you think, what's the difference? Or who else is playing in town? I guess that's one thing that has hurt when you do have more venues in town, is you've got more venues pulling crowds in different directions.
Right.
So what are the shows that are going to kind of be at the top of people's list to go see?
Now, what about the indie scene? Do you think we have an indie scene now that's really producing acts of national, importance at this point?
Are you talking about local bands or bands that are...
Local bands. I'm talking about local bands, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more interest. I think some of it's got to be credited to the Avett Brothers coming out of here, and as big as they've gotten and playing these sold-out tours around the country, people have gotten, their eyes are turned back towards Charlotte to see who else is here. We've had a lot of bands that have gone to South by Southwest just this past weekend, and last year, a local indie rock band, Sugar Glider, got signed last year out of that. A folk rock band, Matrimony, got signed to Columbia Records. So both of them are working on albums to come out this year. There's a lot more eyes, and I think there's a lot more talent. Just all these venues that have come up, like Snug Harbor, that's opened in the last few years, that have opened their doors to smaller bands. It's improved the music scene from the ground up.
I want to ask you guys both, what are your personal feelings about, I guess, the Charlotte music scene? Do you guys get out and see shows? Have you noticed more shows? Are you both from Charlotte, or how long have you lived here?
Been here 5 years.
Okay, so in that time, have you seen, bigger acts? I know Aretha Franklin came a few weeks ago. Are you a music fan, number one?
Oh, absolutely. And yes.
I don't want to be presumptuous.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
No, absolutely. Yes. It's interesting, though. Different perspective would be students. The larger number of venues has actually given more of our kids opportunities to experience internships and have those music experiences.
Oh, wow.
So the music scene for our students is larger now, simply because we have more opportunities in Charlotte. And so I've seen it in especially our high schools.
Okay, cool. Now, what about you? Even from maybe a law enforcement perspective, I mean, are there more, I guess, details of people providing security and more, I don't know, traffic log jams as a result of? Have you noticed that?
I don't think traffic's an issue, but I've been here 32 years, and police officers can moonlight. We work extra jobs, and a lot of the jobs I've worked have been at music venues.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember. We'll say I worked at Verizon for several years, and that venue pretty much stays the same. Same crowds, similar types of music. I go to the Music Factory quite often.
Okay.
And the Double Door's been there probably since I was born. I don't know what year that was
No,
born.
yeah.
But they all provide excellent music.
Okay, cool. I think we got something from Jarvis. What you got, Jarvis?
Yes. On Twitter, we asked our followers what's their favorite live music venue in Charlotte, and is there a particular show they're looking forward to. At Carrick, he creatively, as people do, uses the one for his eye, says, I'm an outlier, but it have to be Amos South End. Can't wait to go hear Behemoth and Watain there later in the spring. Haven't heard of those bands.
They're hot.
He also says that Charlotte is his go. He lives in Columbia, but Charlotte is his go between Amos and Tremont. At JPCMD 515 says Verizon Wireless Amphitheater is his favorite venue, and he's looking forward to DMB and Madonna. I think Madonna's coming to the arena.
Okay.
At Creative Stack says Visual Light has been my favorite live music venue for over 10 years. And take one more. At Stock Girl Friday says, I'm an old school hip hop and R&B fan, looking forward to New Edition in May. So it's interesting, as Jeff pointed out, we have several live new music venues in Charlotte, but people's favorite still seems to be in the ones that have been around 10 plus years, Amos, Visual Light, Verizon Wireless, and stuff like that.
Well, thank you, Jarvis. You know, speaking of New Edition, I will say when I was younger, people said I looked like Ralph Tresvant. Seriously. What is everybody laughing for? Anyway, Jeff, I want to ask you one last question about this. Or two. One, what's a local band that we think people need to, or you think people need to be watching? And also, what's the show coming up that you think people should check out?
Those are tough.
Well, just give me the first one.
Show coming up, I'll say, got announced today, Gogol Bordello. They're a
Okay.
gypsy rock band, kind of punk influenced. They're making their Charlotte debut here in May, May 21st. Just got announced this morning. So it's great that they're finally
It's a scoop.
getting to Charlotte. And local bands, just some of the ones I mentioned, like Sugar Glider and Matrimony both got signed. So those are ones who are already established. But really, it's one of those things where people just need to go out and give music a chance. There's always a band, local bands playing. Check them out online. Check them out however. Go, pay $5 to go check them out at a local venue like Snug Harbor, Evening Muse, and just check them out. Because some of these bands that you hear now that, are just starting out are going to be these next Avett Brothers and bigger bands.
Right.
Get them now while they're cheap.
Cool. All right. All right. Well, we're going to move on to the final topic, which is kind of a heavy topic, but, we got an expert here to talk about it. CMPD, you guys have the Sexual Assault Cold Case Unit. That's the proper name for it?
Right,
And you're
it
actually
is.
on that unit.
Yeah, I supervise that unit.
Okay. And you guys have been around, the unit has been around since 2003?
Well, technically 2006.
2006.
Yeah,
Okay.
Was when we first decided that we were going to reach out to the chief and try to get a little bit of funding to get one detective started at that point.
Okay. And recently, I was reading in the Charlotte Observer that you got a grant from the Justice Department to kind of, I guess, continue what you're doing or to increase it. Which
We did. We actually got our first grant from NIJ, which is National Institute of Justice, back in 2009.
Okay.
And it was relatively a small grant to bring in 2 part-time, what I would refer to as retired detectives, but they're analysts.
Okay.
To review cases, to determine their solvability. Then if they were some solvability factors, they would hand it off to the full-time detective.
Okay.
So the grant didn't really pay for the full-time detective. It just paid for these 2 individuals. And when that grant expired and the funds were expended, of course, Chief Monroe funded the unit, and we applied for another grant. And what we did was we started thinking what went wrong and what went right. So we knew that we could solve cases, but the problem was when you solve them, it creates a backlog in the district attorney's office. It also creates a backlog in our crime lab. So we asked for a prosecutor to work strictly in our unit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
To do nothing but prosecute cold cases, and we asked for our own DNA analyst. And so our grant is approximately $500,000.
Right.
And fortunately, we were awarded that grant. I think it started in October.
Okay.
And
So
so
how-
now we have everything we wanted.
Okay. So how has it been going? And how is it in terms of solving these cases and reopening? What has been the successes that you've seen?
Well, I'd have to go back further than October, but we've reviewed over 800 cases and solved over 140 of those cases.
Wow.
And we've of those cases, I think 40 something of them have been cleared by arrest, where we've made arrests, and then those have resulted in almost 900 years of prison sentence combined total.
Okay.
So, we've been very successful. And now that we have a prosecutor on board, we're actually able to sit around basically a table similar to this, and we discuss our cases. And he's able to say, well, you know, I don't think we're going to be able to go further with that case. Or he'll say, I like this case. I think we can prosecute this. We've got good, strong individuals. We've got, you know, good evidence. And then he'll give us some advice on where we need to go to try to strengthen that case. So it's really helped us bring more focus into our direction.
Okay.
You know, currently we're solving almost 20% of the cases that we touch. And with his help, the ones that we do solve are going to be more prosecutable.
Now, how long have most of these cases, or some of these cases, been open?
Our oldest case we recently just made an arrest in was from January of 1981.
Wow.
And, you know, I had been in the police academy for 2 weeks when that occurred. You know, I've been on 32 years now.
Wow.
So that's our oldest to date. Now, we do have some cases from the 70s that we're going back and looking at. But today's date, you know, January of 81 is our oldest case. And then we've got several up in the late 80s. And then the majority of our cases are starting around 1990 and going, you know, 90 to 2000. We've got a large chunk of cases.
Now, have you got any feedback from any of the families, you know, of the victims?
Oh, they're ecstatic to know that, because we don't really reach out to them until we've made resolution. It's just really not fair to someone who's moved on to reopen that wound and then not be able to solve that case. So what we try to do is we work the cases and we try to solve that case. And then we reach out to that person and let them know, to give them some time to let it soak in, to let them make some decisions that they're going to have to make, which are going to be hard decisions, because a lot of people who are sexually assaulted, they've moved on in their lives. They haven't told their family. They haven't told they may have gotten married and not told their new husband. So we have to be very careful about how we broach that subject. So, but the cases that we've solved, and we've had a couple of victims that did not want to go forward because it was just too traumatic. But the majority of them are ecstatic.
I do want to ask you guys, just what are your thoughts, I guess, about safety and crime in Charlotte? You know, you've been here for 5 years, and you also been here, I don't know how long you've been here.
5 years.
About 5 years, okay. So, I mean, from that time, compared to maybe some of the other places you've seen and lived, what do you think of just the safety element in Charlotte?
I live in the east part of Charlotte, and then also spend time in downtown Center City, and have never felt uncomfortable. I've never felt afraid. This, in my opinion, is a very safe place to be. Certainly, we have our challenges and issues in different parts of our community, but as a whole, very safe. Very safe.
What about you, Jeff?
It varies. I mean, I grew up in an hour from New York City, so
I
dealt
really
with a completely different kind of crime element up there. But I mean, just being here, I've always felt safe, and I know in my own community where I live on the northwest side of Charlotte that we're very there's police officers that are very active in our community and come to HOA meetings and things like that, just to make us aware when there are break-ins that happen and keep us informed. And that's what it always comes down to, is being aware of your surroundings and stuff like that. So I've never really felt unsafe. I mean, I've always felt comfortable in places I've been.
I want to ask you, do you think that just the presence of a unit like yours, does it work as a deterrent to crime?
I think it does, because we've gotten some good information out that you may commit a crime today and you may get away with it today.
Right.
But, I mean, do you really want us knocking on your door in 10 years?
Right.
And, you know, the man that we arrested in the 81 case is now 62 years old.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, with all we know about DNA, I honestly don't believe you can commit a crime and get away with it anymore.
Yeah.
And DNA technology advances tenfold every year. So I honestly believe that the majority of people would sit there and look at this and say, I don't know that I want to do this.
Right, right.
Now, some people are just destined to be criminals, you know, and if you're a rapist, you're probably going to be a rapist. But I would hope that, you know, other criminals that have choices, like robbers and things like that, because you can use the same technology to catch a robbery suspect as a rape suspect.
Wow. Now, is DNA the primary tool that you guys use to solve these cases?
It's become invaluable to us.
Okay.
I mean, there is no way to walk into this room and sit here without leaving your DNA behind. And it doesn't involve.
You hear that, Jarvis?
It's not body fluids all the time. I mean, there's going to be our DNA. Each of our DNA is on this table.
Oh, boy.
And, you just can't do something without leaving DNA behind.
Okay, well, folks, that's a lesson to you at home. But now, okay, we're going to do the lightning round. Thank you very much. We're going to go do the lightning round, and we're going to actually ask you guys if there's any stories that were in the media in the last week or so that you think people should pay attention to, or if there's anything going on in your particular area of business that you think people should know about. I'm going to start with Jeff. Is there any albums coming out or any music we should be, or if you have a story coming up?
I'm drawing a blank right now.
What do you have coming out tomorrow? I know the paper comes out tomorrow.
And I'm already working on next week.
What are you working on now, Jeff? What are you working on for next week?
Here's a story that I think is worth mentioning. There's an artist called Emmanuel Jal who's coming in a couple weeks. I think he's here on the 29th of March. He is he's from Sudan and was one of those child rebel fighters when he was real young, and has kind of escaped that life and is now doing hip hop, and he'll be here speaking at CPCC and then doing a benefit show for Sudan at Amos's. So
okay, cool.
That's worth mentioning.
Oh, well, thank you, Jeff. Now, what about you? Is there anything that we should be paying attention to? CMS?
Sure. It's CMS, we're in the middle of the budget process right now. In a few months, we will take that budget to the county commission. So it's, as a citizen, paying attention to what's happening in CMS, watching the budget process, and then providing input to whether it's your local school or a board member or even the county commission.
Any developments with the new superintendent?
New superintendent search is underway. We'll have some meetings in April. Some things perhaps will be announced, but the board hopes to have a new superintendent in place at some point during the month of May.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We'll skip you this time. That DNA thing got me kind of scared. All right.
You just left.
Oh, boy. See? Thank you, folks, for joining us for another episode of 282. I'm Carlson, and come back next week. We'll have another great show for you. More great guests, more DNA.